Over the past few years of owning this company as well as having this podcast, one of my favorite things has been the fact that I have been able to connect with so many of you incredible women. And one of the things that I've learned in that is that self trust is one of the things that collectively we've struggled with the most. And that learning how to listen to yourself, know yourself, trust yourself is the thing that you all want the most. And with that, I feel so honored that I got to bring today's guest for the podcast onto the show. Today, we have Jolie Steele, who is a life coach for women who are looking to break free from people pleasing and fear based living. She specializes in helping women build unshakable self trust and confidence. And one thing that I can say as watching Jolie's journey and getting to be a part of Jolie's journey in different times is, damn, is she an inspiration. She has been one of the women in the online space, because I unfortunately haven't got to meet her in person yet, that has inspired me the most, just through the way that she unapologetically and confidently shows up as herself and shares her message from a place of lived experience and just such deep rooted trust inside of herself, given the circumstances that she's walked through. And so on today's podcast episode, I get to have this super powerful conversation with Jolie about her journey of going from organized religion and being married at a very young age to now divorced and living a life that is so much more authentic and just trusting and soul aligned for herself. And I mention it many times on today's podcast episode, but if you are a mom, if you are a woman who has been in a relationship or a marriage that you're questioning, if you have come from organized religion and you feel as though it no longer serves or supports you in the way that it used to, then you not only are going to want to listen to today's podcast episode, but you're also going to want to connect with Jolie over on Instagram, as well as potentially become a part of her world for any of the coaching or retreats that she have going on. So I've listed all of Jolie's information down below in the show notes. But I hope that you enjoy today's podcast episode. If you do, please let us know over on Instagram. And without a further ado, here is Jolie. What's up, and welcome to the That's So Rich podcast, the show that's redefining wealth and helping you manifest a life that is rich in every single way. I'm your host, Kat Kozad, transformation coach, manifestation expert, and spiritual guide. And together, we're going to create your happiest, healthiest, and wealthiest life. I'm so happy you're here. Let's do this thing.
Alrighty, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of That's So Rich. Today, I'm so excited to have Miss Jolie on the podcast. Jolie, was it probably like a year-ish ago that we found each other?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I think it was about a year ago. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's so crazy because I feel like I've been able to get to watch like little pieces of your journey and just see you become such an incredible like leader in all of the things that you do in your own life. And it's so inspiring to me, especially as someone who aspires to have kids one day and just be a woman who fiercely leads in her own life in every single like capacity. Because I feel like for me, I'm told a lot of the time that being so young, like I'm 29 this year, that it's really easy for me to make life changes. It's really easy for me to do all these things. And I completely agree with that because I'm my only responsibility. Whereas getting to watch you and see how you've just shown up in your life and done everything that you've done, kids in tow with you, is so inspiring. So I wanted to bring you onto the podcast today, first and foremost, because I think that everybody needs to hear from you. And second, because I'm just so inspired by you. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. And that inspiration is so mutual. And I have always hated when people are like, just you wait, or you're such a baby. So please don't disparage yourself in that way. The things that you've done are incredible. And 29 is a lovely age, and age is just a number. So
Absolutely. I'm hyped. I just realized this the other day that I'm experiencing everything for the last time in my 20s. So like this is the last summer of my 20s, which is absolutely nuts. But
Yeah.
like getting to see women like yourself and like other people who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s that inspire me so much. I'm like, oh, it's just getting better. Like, come on, it's gonna be so good.
Yeah. No, I'm like in the same boat, just a decade ahead because I'm 38. So I'm like, oh my
Oh,
gosh,
fun.
I'm like almost done with my 30s. It's crazy. It just goes so fast.
So crazy. So with that, I would love to ask you to kick this off. Just like what is the journey, the story that has led you to be who you are in the world today, doing the work that you do, and yeah, just showing up as the woman that you are.
Yeah. Well, it all started on June, no, I'm kidding. 1987. No, so I think the fundamental pieces of my identity tend to be around the fact that I was raised in a very religious environment. I went to a small private Baptist school from kindergarten all the way till my senior year. I also was very involved in church, and my identity was very strongly wrapped around religion and what I felt, basically what was handed to me as like what my identity as a girl and then eventually as a young woman should be inside of religion. And so religion played a really huge part in my identity up until my late 20s. I got married very young. I did the whole like, I went to college, but my adolescence and my young adulthood were marked by having very little sense of identity. I thought that I did, but most of my identity was what I thought my identity was supposed to be, based on this idea that like, I am but a mere sinful human who needs God to like ordain what I should be doing. And, like everything that I did and every move that I made was based out of this foundational premise that like I don't know and I am inherently like untrustworthy and unknowing. And so I need to look outside of myself to figure out what it is I'm supposed to be doing and what my purpose should be. And so I got married when like the month after I turned 22 to my first boyfriend ever. I was a factual virgin on my wedding night. I had my first kid when I was 25. And my job at the time when I got married, I was a teacher. I did like teaching, and I do feel like I have retained like teaching is something authentic to me. But at the time, I feel like I became a teacher because my parents were like, you should be a teacher or a nurse. That's good for a mom. And I was like, did I like say I was going to be a mom? Like, I just like, it was so presumed. This is what you do. You find a stable man and then you like create a family and become the nurturing element of that family. And I was honestly, again, there is a big part of me authentically now that I'm older. I do love to nurture. That is an authentic ingredient of who I am. But I went into that kind of in a way that entrapped myself in the sense that I quit my job once I started having kids. And I spent a good decade raising my kids from age 25 to 35. I have two kids, they are 12 and 9 right now. And I just let that be my whole identity. And what happened basically in my 30s was that like I started to become more of myself and become more interested in like what drives me and what do I love. And I simultaneously felt like I was growing apart from my then husband. I'm now divorced. And that became a very tumultuous time of my life because I was financially kind of inept. I didn't have a steady job. I had done a lot of entrepreneurial things, but I lacked a lot of self confidence because the general temperature of my environment was like, that's cute and everything, but don't like make sure you can be home for the kids. Like the idea was that it was cool for me to pursue something on the side, but let's not let it interfere with your role as primary caretaker here and taking care of the home front. And I also, now that I understand things like unconscious beliefs and stuff, I definitely had all these unconscious ideas that like I wasn't really made for success. That wasn't something that I was entitled to as a woman and a mother. And so my life essentially fully unraveled when I was 35. I had a moment where I had known for years that my life felt very misaligned, very uncomfortable. I didn't know how, I didn't have the agency or the self-trust to take action on that. And so what actually ended up happening is that I just kind of fully unraveled, like short of a mental breakdown, essentially, until I was able to, I had this kind of like Kundalini moment. I literally discovered Kundalini yoga and like the first, this is the craziest story. The first day that I did an online Kundalini yoga course, it was like 20 minutes of like spinal flexing and breathing. And I was like, okay, that felt cool, I guess.
Yeah.
Later that day, I just had a full cascade of mental breakdown emotion. And that night, I sat across from my then husband and I was like, I think that it's time that I just say the truth, which is that I think this is over. And I think I've tried everything I can. And I don't think this can work. And I think we need to separate. And I fully accredit the Kundalini yoga session to like unleashing that energy block of like,
Yeah.
that had been in there for so long. And my body was breaking down trying to hold that in because I was so afraid. My self-worth and my self-concept was completely based around whether other people understood and approved of who I was and what I was doing. And so I was willing to essentially destroy myself in order to maintain that safety in my social network until I did that one session of Kundalini yoga. And then my body was like, nope. And I remember the day, the night that I said that. And, you know, it was a big tense moment. And my ex husband was upset and got up and left. And my body, as soon as he left the room, like a giggle erupted out of my body, this totally unconscious, like, I was like stressed out, but then I started laughing and I like clamped my hand over my mouth because I was like, what is going on? What am I doing? And I
Yeah.
think that my body was like, fucking finally, like, thank
Yeah.
you, like, release, like, this is what we needed. And so the last 3 years of my life have been kind of an ongoing continuation. I perceive that leaving religion, which I did when I was about 27 or 28, was kind of the first step of self actualizing myself, realizing like this doesn't align with me anymore. I can't fit here. And that was such a big deal. I believe truly that like I was brainwashed into religion in a very intense way that made leaving it feel like I was dying. I felt like I was in a black hole. Like I didn't know who I could count on. I felt like I had no identity. I didn't know what I liked or didn't like or what I thought or didn't think. And leaving my marriage was a continuation of that. It was another moment of just like feeling like I'm in a black hole. Like, who even am I if I'm not married and if I don't identify as like a mother in this family unit? And so the last 3 years have been about finding my footing in this new chapter of my life as a divorced mom. I pursued being a coach after I marinated on what I could do to financially support myself and realized that I had a long-standing presence online. I had my degree in education and I really needed something that was flexible because of being a mother. And so coaching really fell into place. And I've been doing that for a little over a year now.
Oh my gosh, girl, there's so much inside of that. And first and foremost, just want to say thank you for being so open and transparent because I know majority of the women that listen to this show are mothers and majority of them find themselves in this position where they feel as though like being a mom is the quote unquote only thing that they can do or that they get to do or whatever it may be because their identity becomes so wrapped up in that. And one of the things that you said, and I may butcher your words a little bit, is that you didn't even realize that you didn't have a sense of self. You didn't
Mm.
even realize that like you didn't know who you were. It wasn't like your own identity. It was kind of this identity that was pushed on you through religion, through what it means to be a quote unquote good wife or good woman, or all of these things that societally and religion based get pushed on to women. So I know you said like around age 27 is when you started to exit religion, but was there anything surrounding that you're like the moment that you realized that you didn't have your own self concept and that was something for you to start to build for yourself?
Yeah, I think it was right after I left the religious scene in my life. So I remember a time when my oldest was probably a toddler. Like she was maybe 2 or less, probably about 2. And my then husband at the time was in residency. So he was working all kinds of crazy hours. And so when I was going to church and being involved in church and volunteering, I was doing that with my daughter in tow. And it was really fucking hard and stressful. And I remember one day at church being, my church at the time didn't have a nursery for babies. So if you had a kid and you wanted to go to the church service, you just kind of had to like deal. So I remember being in the back of the church service, like holding my toddler, trying to get her to calm down, trying to listen, and just having this moment of like, what am I doing? I don't even, why am I here? Why, this is so hard. And I don't know that I really resonate with this in the way that I used to. And that felt like a moment where I was finally being honest with myself. But it wasn't until after I fully decided, like, I'm going to honor that honesty and I'm going to stop partaking so much in this community. The period of a year or two after that was when I finally was like, I literally have no idea who I am outside of my identity as a Christian. Like, I don't have any friends that aren't Christians. I don't know what to do. Like, I just didn't, I had no idea. And so it felt like there was so much going on. I was grieving the loss of a version of myself that, I thought that I was and realized that I wasn't. So I would say right after I left religion is when it finally kind of like clocked for me, like, oh, I actually have no idea what I am outside of this.
Totally. And it sounds as though it's like the catalyst to that. And I can relate so deeply in my own life was just like honesty with yourself. And one of the things I look back on my journey and it's like, damn, I was so good at lying to myself for such a long period of time.
Yeah.
And I had a moment, even like once I had started this whole journey of starting my business and learning about manifestation and like getting more honest with myself by almost like taking on a different script or a different rule book of how I needed to move and operate in the world in order to be a successful woman. It's like all of these different scripts of be a good woman, be a successful woman, be a good mom, be this. It's like, shut the fuck up. But it was like, I was having a conversation with my coach at the time. He was like, what do you like to do for fun? And I was like, what? Like, what do I like to do for fun? Like, all I do is build my business. Like, all I do is do this. And then it was like drink outside of that, which like, sure, sometimes, but like that was another sort of like coping thing for me. And that moment of, oh, holy shit, I don't know who I am independent of this one thing that has been like the central focus of my life. Again, whether that be religion or entrepreneurship or motherhood or whatever. And that was like such a portal for me to crack open as well. And it sounds as though very similarly, I always love like getting to hear other people's stories and how many parallels they are in such different ways. But like my parallel to what you said is the Kundalini activation that you had, where it was like this trapped energy that was inside of you, then awoken like, okay, there's more layers of my life that I'm going to start to take action on. Was after that moment for me was when I was first introduced to somatics. And
Yeah.
somatics was the thing that now has completely changed my life in so many different ways. But so for you within that, once you started to question things, once you started to be like, okay, stepping into honesty with myself, how did you know the difference between what was honesty from like your soul or your intuition and what was outside noise or like fear-based opinions, and being able to decipher truly like coming home to yourself when it sounds as though you were never given a clear foundation of what that was in the first place?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And it was really hard because I know I mentioned this already, but I feel like what, and this may not have been the intention of the religion or the religious leaders that I grew up with, but what I internalized from my religious upbringing, I always think of that verse. I don't remember the reference anymore. I think it's in Jeremiah, but it's something like the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond reproach. Who can something or other? Like basically the concept being like your own self is untrustworthy. Like you can't trust your desires, your thoughts, your wants. And so that was for me like the bedrock of my whole self concept is like, I can't be trusted. Like I'm sinful. I need a savior. And so that made it all the harder. And I think the main thing that got me started was finding what one of my coaches uses the term expanders, finding expanders that were women that were speaking my language, a language I didn't even have awareness of until I found them. And I was like, oh my God, they're saying what I'm thinking and feeling, and they're making sense of it, and they're proud of it, and they're sure of it. And the two biggest expanders for me were Clarissa Pinkola Estes, who wrote Women Who Run with the Wolves,
Mhm.
and then Glennon Doyle, who wrote Untamed, which in my mind is just like the Gen X version of Women Who Run with the Wolves. Like it's a very similar material, just like a different woman's take on it, which is not a dig at all. It's just like I read Untamed and was like, oh my God, this is just like Women Who Run with the Wolves, just like more modern. But reading Women Who Run with the Wolves, that remains like a very pivotal inflection point for me, because I had all of this internal stuff going on that I didn't have the language for. And what I see now was that it really was, you can call it intuition, you can just call it inner knowing, but like you can also just call it like human intelligence. Like I knew that what was happening didn't fit right for me, but I didn't realize that I had the right and the agency to just be like, oh, this isn't working anymore. I need to change something. And reading Women Who Run with the Wolves, it was just like reading this giant handbook of a woman who has a PhD, who is a Jungian psychologist, and who was making sense of all this stuff that I had no words for in both a spiritual and a scientific way. And so that was a big turning point for me, was reading Women Who Run with the Wolves and hearing a woman that did this, studied this stuff for a living, studied female psychology, and reading these intense, in-depth chapters all about like women who have dulled their own senses, who have repressed their intuition, and reading her description of what a woman is like when she has dulled herself was like reading my autobiography. Like she would have these paragraphs of just being like uneasy, constantly overthinking, like constantly changing course or trying something but letting it go because you don't believe you can finish it. Like I'm butchering the language, but she would have these long descriptions and I would be like, that's me 100%. And so I think my starting point really was finding women who were older than me, had more life experience, and who were talking very frankly and directly about this, really breathed a lot of life into me and gave me the courage, shaking, but gave me the courage to do what I felt I needed to do.
I love, love, love that you say that, because one of the things that I'm such a firm believer of, and I'm sure you've heard me say 1,000 times, is like, we do have all of the answers inside of ourselves. But fuck, when you're used to reading in one language and suddenly it's like, okay, the language that you've been given is English, let's say, to the roadmap that you've been given for your life. And it's something that somebody's handed to you, and that's all that you've read your entire life. And suddenly you're trying to learn the language of your soul. You're trying to learn the language of your intuition. You're trying to get closer of like, what is this innate knowing that I have inside of myself? But it's in Mandarin, like it's in Chinese. I don't know this language yet. Being able to find those expanders or those translators or those guides that have walked the path in some sort of way, and be able to like mirror back to you these things that you already know. And it's like, oh, wow, that is like, I've heard that a million times, but to me before it's sounded gibberish, or it's felt like gibberish, because I didn't have the verbiage for it, or I didn't have the like knowing or the wisdom or the knowledge to understand that that's what was happening for me, is so huge. And for me, I know I'm always so transparent about the fact that I haven't done hardly any of this journey alone. I would say in the past like 2 years of my life, I've worked with coaches less, because I've been 6 years now of like consistently being on this journey, working with coaches, running the business, so on and so forth. In the last two, I was like, okay, let's fully lean on me for a little bit and see what's here. But at first, if it wasn't for my book was You're a Badass by Jen Sincero. So different,
Yeah.
again, parallels, but different one. I also want to read Women with the Wolves. Women Who Run with the Wolves, because I've seen you talk about it a lot. I actually saw it in a bookstore in London like 2 years ago and picked it up and then put it back down. But like you're saying, it's like to have just an illumination of what's going on inside of you and an understanding of that so that then you can take that and run with it is so huge.
I also think to circle back to how did I know like what was my intuition versus something else? I think that something that I wish I would have known that I see now looking back is that the start of it for me was actually more about recognizing what wasn't aligned. Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't start immediately with like, oh, I know what my intuitive voice is now and I know what's intuitively aligned for me. But as you mentioned with somatics, and what I mentioned in those excerpts of Women Who Run with the Wolves, seeing someone else describe what it looks like to be fully misaligned and recognizing, like, oh, my body is revolting and I'm constantly overwhelmed or stressed out or fatigued or whatever. And just recognizing that that state is not normal and indicates that things are not aligned for me was the real starting point because I couldn't have told you after I read Women Who Run with the Wolves, like what I was going to shoot for. I just knew that where I was wrong. And that was the first step was, can I start recognizing when my body's communicating with me that this shit doesn't feel aligned? And can I get out of those circumstances and simply create space where my body can calm down? And then there's that trust of like, now that I've created space, let me just see what comes my way or let me see what I'm drawn to. It's not always about like, oh, I've got this intuitive ping and I know exactly where I'm going to go for the next 2 years.
Totally. 100%. That's like, I think that's not talked about enough. I think, especially like one of the things that pisses me off so much in the manifestation space, but like one of the major things that pisses me off is like, you have to know what it is that you want. And it's like, when somebody is so disconnected from their own inner knowing and from themselves due to societal conditioning or the patriarchy or whatever it may be,
Yeah,
what
they
they
don't
think they
know.
yeah, they don't know what they think they want for themselves oftentimes is like actually what society wants for them and they're trying to get as a byproduct of receiving validation or love or whatever it may be. And from the beginning of starting like my journey and what I do, one of the biggest things for me has always been like, okay, we're going to dig up the shit first. And it's the thing that most people don't want to do because it's
Yeah.
the most uncomfortable.
Or a lot of them will
What
be like, I just want calm. And I'm like, that's a great goal, but I bet you have more inside of you. But yeah, let's get to calm first. Like,
Totally, totally. But it's also like, what does calm even mean if it's like it's in some way, shape, or form just like bypassing like
yeah.
the shit that is there. And for me, like so much of that, and still to this day, one of the things that I again like love to be so transparent about is I'm still doing this work. I'll be
Oh, yeah.
doing this work for the rest of time is like this need to like overachieve in order to be seen as like loved or valid or worthy or whatever the heck it is. And now coming to this place of, okay, self-sourcing it for me and like knowing that I'm not innately flawed or that just because I'm not getting what I want doesn't mean it's something terrible inside of me that I'm unable to like fix or whatever.
Yeah.
But like throughout your journey, what would you say has been like your core shit that you've had to dig up?
I think that for me, it's been a sense of like innate safety within
Mm,
myself and maybe combined with, or maybe they're connected, like innate trust in like my worthiness. But I think for me, a big theme for me has been chasing the feeling of being safe and worthy in whatever I can find outside of myself
mhm.
and constantly trying to outsource for that safety and for that worthiness. That's a huge thing that I work with my coaching clients on is people pleasing and a sense of worthiness and how so many women people please because they feel like that is the avenue to earn their worth and their belonging, which then for many of them feels like safety,
Yeah.
right? And so for me, it's been going back to, I know that I do a lot of meditations of going back to my childhood and my inner child and reworking memories of feeling inherently unsafe, feeling inherently unlovable, and creating that place inside of myself, which I know is something when I was in your coaching group. I mean, that was a big thing was like your message of it's never going to be enough if you don't have a sense of safety. Like if you think that hitting some barometer of some level of income or whatever is going to appease this innate sense of insecurity or whatever, like it's not going to happen. And so for me, yeah, it's been about self-trust because I'm the baby of my family. I got married, as I said, I married my first boyfriend. I didn't have, like, when I was 35 and I got a divorce, I had never lived by myself ever. Like, I went from living at home through college. I was a commuter college kid that lived with my mother. And then I immediately got married and moved in with my husband. And so I was 35 with the brain of like a 20-year-old. Like it was very difficult for me to be like, I can do this. And it wasn't because I wasn't capable. It was just this mindset of this, where is the adult? I need an adult. I need an adult to make me safe and make me feel like I'm lovable. And so for me, it's been about reparenting those parts of myself and growing into the identity of it's all here. Like I have the safety, I have the acceptance and the warmth that I'm looking for. And it's never something that's coming from the outside. It's all resourced within me.
Wow. That's so beautiful. And I know I already said it, but it's like for most of the ladies that are listening right now, they're moms. And I know that at least a lot of them who come to me and are part of my world are unhappy in their relationships in some sort of capacity, going through divorces or separations. And just like I hope that for whoever is listening right now, listening to what Jolie is saying, you said first time you lived alone was 35.
Yeah.
Yeah, 35 years old. That's fucking epic.
So old.
And to be able to be like, you didn't allow the circumstances of your life, like you said earlier, is like these misaligned things to continue to crush you, and used use this internal knowing to step forward and create this life, like you said, shaking, terrified,
Yeah, it was
but
not
still fucking did
easy. I
it.
mean, I remember like I kept our, I guess legally it's called like our marital home when we got a
Mhm.
divorce. And part of the stipulation was that I had to refinance the house within the first year that we were divorced. And we bought the house at a 2.9% interest rate. And when I refinanced, I had to refinance at a 6.5% interest rate, which is obviously like over double of my interest rate. And like I had to talk to like 15 lenders and I got denied by 14 of them to refinance because my debt to income ratio with the income that I had didn't on paper, like it wasn't going to cover it, even though I had been covering it. But like I was self-employed and I was patching things together. I rented out a bedroom in my house. And so I basically had to go into my bank and be like, Glenn, I've been at this bank. I've been paying my mortgage. I've never missed a payment. Like my kid's school district is tied to this house. Can you please just give me a shot? Like what do I need to do? And it was awful, right? I want
Yeah.
to make it clear that like I was shaking. It wasn't easy. I didn't have that kundalini moment and then just shine through like a goddess through all the rest of the next 3 years.
No.
There was a lot of panic. There was a lot of like, okay, like I remember talking on the phone to my dad and my dad being like, hey, like maybe you do lose your house. And guess what? The magic is in you, bitch. Like you'll get an apartment and you'll make it cute and you'll have a garden on your terrace and like it'll be fine. If that's what's next, then that's what's next. And that's no problem. And again, that points back to that energy of like, a house is a house. It's not a home. Like I am the home and I will figure out what I can figure out. And I mean, obviously, luckily, I was able to make it work with my house. But yeah, I tell people all the time, following your intuition is fucking scary. That's kind of the point. Like it is beautiful. It is inspiring. It's also terrifying. Like
Yeah.
facts.
Absolutely terrifying. Still terrifying
Yeah.
to this day. Like
Yep.
the
I feel
fuck.
you.
But I just want to reiterate what you said because you said it so beautifully is a house is just a house. I am the home.
Yeah.
And that is safety. Like that is such deep internal safety of like, yeah, a job is a job, but I'm like, what makes my career magical? It's a house is a house, but I'm the home. It's a relationship is a relationship, but I am the love. And being
Yes.
able to like really set into that deep sense of what you're talking about, like trust, knowing inside of
Yeah.
yourself, even when you feel like you're doing it fucking terrified.
Yeah. And not to get like spiritual on you, but I know that this topic
Always
is
get spiritual on me.
well, I mean, I think I've had a really beautiful turn in my relationship to divinity because I went through a long season after I left religion where I was like, I can't have any of it. Like, I
Yep.
don't ask me about God. Don't ask me to tell you what I believe. Don't ask me how I identify. I don't owe anyone anything. And I
Yep.
went through years of just being totally severed from any concept really of spirituality. And as we talk about all this, like the house is a house and I am the home, like I do believe now and touch on sometimes that like I believe in that because I think we are the divinity. Like what I think
Mm-hmm.
is magical in me, I think is God in me, right? Like I
Yep.
don't love the word God. It doesn't encompass what I feel. Like say whatever you want, universe, source, but like I want to make clear that this isn't some sort of like I think I'm really special and so that's why I can do this. It's I think all of us have the capacity to touch into that divinity within ourselves. And when
Yep.
we are at our best expression and at our most trusting, it's because we're leaning into that divinity that we all hold.
Yep. 100%. That's been a game changer for me as well. I feel as though in this whole journey of uncovering and understanding spirituality for myself, there was a period of time where it felt like I was manhandling this power for a bit and then went to the opposite end of the spectrum of like Jesus, take the wheel. Absolutely no hands on the wheel whatsoever. And I'm going to see what happens. And my life went to absolute shit during that period of time. And I feel as though it's so divine and synchronistic to come back to this place of, oh, it was never going to be something outside of myself. It was always going to be understanding the fact that divinity lives within me. And that when I place my hands on the steering wheel, fuck, am I going to drive that car to the most amazing places?
100%. And something that occurred to me as I was trying to leave my marriage is I was going through my college journals. I was obviously such a baby, but I was also like a young baby because I was so brainwashed into religion. But like I would be journaling about my problems. And the end of most of my journal entries with my problems would be like, well, I'm just going to pray that God will take care of it. And that was my whole mentality was like, I'll just throw it up there to God and God will move the chess pieces around and like he's got control. And I think there is an element of like trust and trusting that we can't do everything, but taking on this new mentality of yes, I should trust, but also like I have the God given power. Like I'm supposed to be making decisions, I'm supposed to be making moves. And the trust is that I have the resources and the thoughts that I need to make those decisions and trust in them. That was such a big
Totally.
thing for me was that for so long, I literally thought I had no control of my life. Well, I'll just pray
Yep.
about it. That was like the energy. Like, I'll just pray about it and then things will just. I remember having problems with my ex husband when we were dating. I was like 18 or 19. And I would be like, this just seems like it's like my journals would be like, this doesn't feel like it's going very well, but I'm just going to pray and trust that like whatever should happen will happen. And
Yep.
that's how I accidentally got married for 12 years. It's just like, I totally knew that it wasn't aligned, but I didn't know that I had the agency and the trust to listen to myself. And that has completely shifted how my life is going.
That's so powerful. Okay, so my question to you, because I'm so curious, I've noticed the difference for myself in my life from what I said of like hands completely off. Well, one, manhandling and being like, yeah, like using the universe, using God, so on and so forth, to like Jesus take the wheel, hands completely off, to now being in this place of God works through me, the universe works through me, divinity, whatever we want to call it. What's the difference from like your upbringing and how that felt physically inside of your body through the like religious upbringing and conditioning that you had to now this belief and just knowing and feeling of divinities working through you? Like, how does that actually feel inside of your body? And what's the contrast between the two?
I love that question. And it's actually bringing up, you asked me earlier, like what my core wound was. And I was like, not, I was like, I was like short, what's it called? Short circuiting.
Short circuiting.
Because a big thing that that didn't come up for me that's getting jogged now is a huge theme for me was powerlessness.
Yeah.
So much of my meditative visualizing inner child work is this intense feeling of helplessness and powerlessness. And it felt very physically binding. I mean, it's funny. Like, I had dreams for years and years. And it's so funny. I love talking about dreams, and I could do a whole podcast episode on them. I used to have all these dreams, one of which, or many of which, Clarissa addresses in Women Who Run with the Wolves. I would have dreams where I was trying to physically defend myself, and I would like punch someone coming at me, but I could never actually make contact in the dream. I would have dreams where I would be trying to dial somebody to ask for help, and I couldn't get my fingers to dial the right number. All these dreams. And as I started to go to therapy in my early 30s and work through this shit, I remember I had a dream like 6 months into therapy where somebody was attacking me in a dream, and I punched them and I landed the punch. And I literally in the dream was like, holy fuck, like,
Yeah.
I have power. So to speak to the bodily experience, I mean, I had so many bodily problems before I got a divorce. I had physical anxiety and panic attacks. I had a lot of gut issues and stomach issues. I had way more headaches than I have now. You know, you can't separate your body from that experience. And I think now it's not necessarily that I don't still grapple with feeling sometimes powerless or scared or whatever, but having the tools and the understanding of this is energy in my body and I can express this from my body, and learning how to interact with that energy and expel that energy when I need to is so much different. I feel like how I carry my physical bones is different. Like how I walk and talk and hold my posture is different, because I have pictures of me all through my 20s where like I'm standing in pictures and I'm like,
Yeah.
like, rounding my shoulders and like trying to look as small as possible. And I just don't, that's not how I hold my body anymore. So it definitely came through physically. And I went through years of bodily issues that eventually resolved after I got a divorce. I was in stage 3 kidney disease that just started reversing itself after I got a divorce.
Wow.
My doctor was like, nobody could I went to a nephrologist and he was like, I have no idea why you have kidney disease. This doesn't make any sense. And like I did a bunch of research and found out that having gut problems can eventually like compound into kidney problems if they go too long.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the physical impact is not a joke.
No, totally. It's so crazy too, because what you're talking about, even just being contracted, like hunching over in photos versus being able to hold your body different. I know that both of us are huge on this and talk about it, but it's like the somatic relationship that we have to everything, and being able to actually like physically move that past energy and hopelessness and all these different things from the body gives you a completely different experience of life, to be able to interact with it in a way that perhaps feels more authentic to you or feels more in alignment with you in whatever way, shape, or form. And just, I mean, we keep on talking about, and I keep on reiterating to everybody who's listening, it's not like you do this once and everything
Oh,
is magically better. Like,
yeah.
I know I've said it, I've been on this journey for 6 years now. Fuck, I had to do it for myself this morning. Like, come on. It's like being able to recognize that it's not necessarily about like showing up and just doing it once and waiting for everything to be different. It's like, I feel as though, if anything that we've talked about is this relationship to self and relationship to trust. And I think one of the most impactful and like trusting things that you can do for yourself is showing yourself that you're always going to show up no
Yeah.
matter what. As you go on this journey and continue to be on this journey, and you will be on this journey for the rest of your life, showing yourself that you're always going to show up is the nicest thing that you can do for yourself.
Yeah, and I think recognizing too that if you are somebody that is trying to show up for yourself and you're trying to grow, unfortunately, you're gonna keep fucking growing into more growth opportunities. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna expand out of the current shell that you're in, and then you're gonna be like, fuck, I'm naked and vulnerable again. And like,
Yeah.
it's just an ongoing process, and getting comfortable with that discomfort, getting comfortable with the uncertainty of the human experience. It's lifelong. I totally hear you. Like, it's funny because I'm the same way. Like, I'm sure people see me and they're like, oh my God, she's so accomplished or whatever. And like, I still have a lot of the same things that I'm still working through. I just have a higher capacity and threshold and like ability to hold myself through it. But we don't get to level out of the human experience.
No, no, we don't. But okay, so question for you is, if you think back to Jolie, like when she first had that Kundalini activation, or like right before that, or I can, again, so many of the women that are listening to this show that are in a very similar position to that version of you, if you could give them like one piece of advice for where they're at right now, what would that be?
Mm, I think it would be to trust yourself. That sounds so cliche and useless, but I think so much of what activated my transformation and the changes that have transpired for me over the last few years began with an ability to just trust my truth. Maybe trust your truth is a better way to say it. Like, what is true for you is allowed to be true for you. And maybe it isn't true for your mother or your sister or your partner or your friends, but you are allowed to have what is true for you be true for you, and just let it be. Don't fight your truth, because the longer you fight your truth, just the more agitated you're going to become. And trust that in the long run, respecting and trusting your truth is going to shake out for you. It will cause chaos first, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
It will cause some chaos, but trust your truth. I think that's the advice that I needed to hear, was like, you can trust your truth. You don't have to prove it to me. Like, if this doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right. You don't have to prove anything. You are allowed to have your lived experience and your truth. I think that's what I would say.
I love it. And something that comes up for me as you're saying that is like, at least for me, I found that my truth lives in my curiosity, where it's like those little things that I get curious about that maybe at the time make absolutely no sense. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, let's keep getting curious about it. Like you were talking about earlier, it's like the Kundalini thing. It's like, I can imagine that was a curiosity of, okay, no fucking clue what this is, but let's give it a go. And it's like your truth lived within that curiosity. And then from that point, it was like, fuck, I'm gonna say this tonight on this couch.
Yeah. And I think going back to the question of what is intuition and what is like anxiety or fear, I think so often the barometer can be like, intuition often is incredibly persistent and very often feels like it doesn't fucking make sense, right? Whereas your fear has a whole Excel spreadsheet of reasons why you shouldn't be doing what the fuck you think you should be doing. And your intuition is just like, I don't know, I just can't stop fucking thinking about this thing, or I'm like magnetized towards this direction and I don't want to be.
Yep.
Those are the times for me, I had a whole laundry list of reasons why it didn't make sense for me to leave my marriage. But eventually, like I said, the magnetism of my intuition
Yeah.
pulled me there, and I didn't always have good reason. I had lots of people who told me I was being foolish and selfish. But the fact of the matter is, 3 years down the road, it's very certain and undeniable to me that I did what I was supposed to do. And I'm in a much better position than I was. And I couldn't have told you that when I was making those moves, but my intuition knew.
Yeah. Damn. So beautiful. So powerful. Okay. So first, I want to ask you, since I can imagine there's going to be many people who want to connect with you after this podcast episode, where can they find you and what do you have going on that they can be a part of?
Yes. I'm primarily active on Instagram. My handle is Your Knowing. And I also have a website, which is just my first and last name, joliesteele.com, that shares a lot more about my coaching work and how to work with me. Also has access to my newsletter there. In terms of what I have going on right now, it is August, right? And so I do have open enrollment for my one-to-one coaching. And then probably not many of your listeners are local to Columbus, but I am hosting my first in-home retreat at my house in September on September 13th, which I'm really excited about. So that's what's coming on down the line.
Beautiful. I think there's actually quite a few girls in Ohio. So,
Oh, nice.
girls, go hit
Come
up
on
Jolie.
over.
I will list all of that down below in the show notes. And Jolie, I could chat with you forever. This is so fun. But my last question that I have for you, and this is the one that I like to ask everybody who comes onto the show, which is what makes life so rich for you?
Oh, what makes life so rich for me? That's such a great question. I think it's all of the simple things. I mean, for as much as I have goals and pursuits for myself, at the end of the day, the things that make me feel so content are the smallest things, like eating a bowl of ice cream with my kids or being outside with the cicadas doing whatever noise they make on my deck with my twinkle lights. I think it's the small pleasures of love and the things that money can't buy is what is the answer for me.
Beautiful. I love it so much. Thank you for coming on to the show today. Thank you for all of your vulnerability and all of the different things that you shared with us. Like I've said so many times, I can really imagine this has landed with so many. So, ladies who are listening, go connect with Jolie. Like I said, all of that is down below in the show notes. But until next time, we will chat with you soon.
Thank you.